Welcome everybody to Energy Medicine, the New Frontier. This is our 85th episode of Dr. Smith Live. We have an incredible topic that's going to pique the interest of all of our viewers out there. It's healing with frequencies. And tonight I have a special guest and a good personal friend of mine, Dr. Ron Repis, MD. He'll be joining us a little later on in the program. And we have some really great information to share with you that you're not going to hear on the 11 o'clock news or from your family physician, because unfortunately most of these practitioners don't know that they don't know. The use of frequencies to heal dates back to the ancient times. Ancient caves all around the world were used to put their inhabitants inside to calm them down. The bottom line is they didn't have Valium, and they didn't have, SSR drugs, and they didn't have psychiatrists, but they put them into these caves. And when the scientists analyzed these caves all over the world, they discovered that there was a common denominator. Every single cave gave off a frequency of 10 hertz, which they later discovered stimulates the meditative state. Now, some people theorize that these caves were made by the ETs. That's a possibility. With their special lasers, they could carve out a little area in a special type of rock that would, resonate at 10 hertz. So it was pretty amazing technology for the period of time that it was in. Also, if there's other ways of disseminating frequencies. You could go into the Bible, I think is the New Testament, Hebrews 6, 1-3, talks about the laying on of the hands. Well, we know from past, history that Jesus laid hands on and was curing people. He also didn't even have to physically put his hands on people. He would just command it, and said, be healed by the nature according to your faith. So there's plenty of recorded documentation that laying on of the hands and frequencies were used for healing in the way back in the ancient days. If you fast forward now to more recent times, the use of frequencies to heal had its origin with Dr. Royal Raymond Rife, and his research went back to the 1930s. Dr. Rife literally invented a special light microscope that enabled him to stain pathogens with light. And when he turned this specially designed prism, and the color of the light passing through the prism, when it matched the vibratory frequency of the pathogen, literally exploded the pathogen. As a result of this discovery, he partnered up with Lee DeForest, who was the inventor of the vacuum tube. And together they put together what they call the Rife frequency generator. And once the diagnosis was made with his special light microscope, they would then program the generator to broadcast the specific frequencies and kill the pathogens, non-invasively. It wouldn't destroy any surrounding tissue. There was no adverse side effects. Well, there was one side effect from the frequencies way back when. It interfered with the radio signals in people's homes around the area, so they had to modify the unit. But other than that, there was no real danger to using it, unlike some of the medications that are being used today. So is there documentation that Dr. Rife's technology really works? Well, in 1934, there was a controlled scientific study that involved medical doctors and pathologists, and it was under the auspices of the University of Southern California. They were given 16 terminal cancer patients. In 3 months, 14 of the 16 were cured. An additional 6 weeks, the other 2 were cured. Even though he had 100% resolution of curing the cancer, he never received the acknowledgement from the establishment of his miraculous results. And it's obvious, because if they would acknowledge this non-invasive technology, it would dramatically cut down on the revenue stream to Big Pharma, and that's the least thing that they wanted. So there was a concerted effort to suppress this technology. And very interestingly, from a historic perspective, 11 research labs around the United States mysteriously burned down in 1 year. I mean, what are the odds of that happening? But you can see, if you go into Google and you do some research of Royal Raymond Rife and the Rife frequency machine, they character assassinate the technology. And you can always tell that they're character assassinating it with standard propaganda. They use such things as unscientific, pseudoscience, no documentation. So when you hear these, terms being used, the red flag has to go up, and you have to realize that it's a concerted effort to dissuade the public from using this technology and getting off the reservation from the conventional medical treatment. In addition to laying onto the hands and sitting in a cave and using Rife generator, there's healing frequencies from meditation. Frequencies are created by meditating, and it actually has a direct effect on the DNA and the telomeres. Your telomeres are like little tags that are attached to the chromosomes and determine your life expectancy. The longer your telomeres, the longer you're going to hang around on this planet. Only 1% of the disease is caused by genetic pre-programming. The other 95 to 99% are due to lifestyle, and we call that epigenetics. So the bottom line is the effect of what's going on in the environment, EMFs, microwaves, chemtrails, whatever, toxins, glyphosate, they're more important in affecting the physiology of the cell than the actual DNA. And back in the 1960s, Bruce Lipton did some research, and he took the DNA out of the cells and they kept functioning normally. So contrary to the medical establishment, the DNA is not the engineer of the train. So the key is it's the receptors on the cell membrane that are dictating the physiology of the actual cell. So the interesting thing, the study was actually done by Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's a chiropractor, very interesting and knowledgeable individual. And they analyzed about 7,500 gene expressions of people in a 4-day advanced course that he gave. And basically, what they did is they had the people lying, standing, walking, sitting, type of meditations. And what they discovered is that it upregulated not only the DNA, but also the telomeres, which is pretty amazing because it's a kind of do-it-yourself type of little therapy that you could do anywhere you want. The end of the 4 days, they showed that there were common 8 genes that were directly upregulated: 2 to suppress cancer, 2 to suppress tumor growth, 2 to stimulate neurogenesis, which is repair of damaged nerves, 1 for stimulating stem cells, and 1 basically to counteract oxidative stress. So the end result of the meditation is that it upregulated the function of the DNA and also the telomeres. So he then ran another study for 60 days where the people meditated 5 out of the 7 days of the week. And the result of that little experiment showed that 74%, that's a big number, 74% lengthened their telomeres. 40% had a great change, 20% had a remarkable change. So if you increase your telomeres by 10%, you're adding on 10% to your life expectancy. And that's without drugs, without vitamins, without any fancy electronic equipment and so forth. You can do it, like you said, in the comfort of your home. So the bottom line is the frequencies represent a common denominator in the whole healing process. The universal frequencies, okay, it's pretty amazing technology. I've been at it for about 6 years now, hot and heavy. So everything in the universe vibrates at a signature frequency. The sand on the beach, celery, drugs, pathogens, viruses, mold, bacteria, they all resonate at a specific frequency. And the frequency is the language that all life understands at the cellular level, which is pretty amazing how the body communicates amongst its cells. And it's the foundation upon which all physiologic processes are based. And it's the critical means of communication between macrocosmic and microcosmic at the cellular level. Our cells exchange information and regulate the body functions through sending and receiving specific frequencies. Okay? This cell signaling precedes and regulates all chemical actions. So when the natural frequency signals become scrambled, your body's ability to self-regulate and maintain a healthy function goes awry. And a perfect example is mercury. You know, people get mercury fillings, and the mercury leaks out 24/7. It's the second most toxic substance on this planet, second only to plutonium. When it gets inside the mitochondria, the little powerhouses in your cell, guess what? It gives off between 13 and 20 different frequencies, and it disrupts the physiology of the cell. That's why it's so darn toxic. The other heavy metals only give off at most 1 or 2 frequencies, but mercury gives off between 13 and 20 frequencies, and that's why it's so deleterious to the body. So, how does disease start? Well, it's real simple. When your body starts to misfire because of abnormal EMFs or frequencies that bombard the body from Wi-Fi, from TATRA system, from telephone signaling, and also exposed to glyphosate and chemtrails and other toxic substances, it disrupts the residency of the actual cell. So it's interesting that cancer cells resonate at a whole different frequency compared to healthy cells. And one of the causes of cancer, of course, are carcinogens. And what was discovered back in the 1970s by Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, that all carcinogens block specific ultraviolet frequencies that enable the body to heal the DNA. So what that's saying is that every carcinogen that was examined did the same exact thing. It blocked the frequency that the cells needed to repair the DNA, and that's why they cause cancer. So that's pretty wild knowledge, and that was back in the 70s, okay? So it stands to reason that unhealthy frequencies transmitted by Wi-Fi or given off by heavy metals or chemical toxins or dead food, for example, that has no frequencies, they alter the cell's vibration, and it affects the cell's ability to send, receive, and accurately interpret signals, and the compromised cell then turns into a disease process. So a cell that's compromised and has a weakened immune system is susceptible to viruses, bacteria, fungi, or so forth. On any good day, the human body has between 1 and 3 trillion viruses or bacteria or fungi in our system. When your system becomes run down, guess what? The opportunistic organisms manifest and you get sick. So when is the flu season? Between Halloween and New Year's. What's the period that most people take in high quantities of sugar and alcohol and get stressed out? Between Halloween and New Year's. So there's no mystery to it. I mean, 1 4-ounce candy bar will lower your calcium level for 6 days. So you could see that lifestyle, epigenetics, dead food, toxic food is going to suppress your immune system. And that's really an important thing. So if you want to reset the body, you have to do 2 things. Subject the body to healthy frequencies, and second, remove the splinters or initiators that are causing the abnormal frequencies in the tissue. So this little information was given to you to give you kind of a general overview of the significance of frequency and a little historic background. And now we're going to bring on my good buddy, Dr. Ron, because he's been working with frequencies for the last few years. And even though he was conventionally trained as a medical doctor and he has impeccable credentials to back up his degree, he has become awakened to this whole arena that has, I think, changed his whole mindset on the healing process. So, Dr. Ron, thank you for joining our program.
Dr. Smith, thank you for having me tonight. It's really a pleasure and an honor. And you really did a great job in laying the foundation for frequencies. Just a few comments, just to build on what you already said. You know, we have 100 trillion cells, and as you mentioned, we have 300 or more trillion, oh my God.
The viruses, bacteria, yeah.
The cells,
yeah.
Okay, that keep us going. And they're all powered by electrical energy. And I think that's a point, that frequencies and energy and matter are synonymous, the way I look at it. And we're dealing with energy, and people are saying, well, I have low energy. I just can't. Well, they have a problem deep in their cells. And that's what I think you're trying to bring out. So if a person's in good health, you know, they can measure and they know that person has a charge between 70 and 100 millivolts. But then you put in some toxins like you just talked about, the glyphosate, the heavy metals, those millivolts drop. They would drop down in the 15 to 20 millivolt range. And when you're down that low, exactly what you said, you get chronic illness. And what today do 80% of people over 75 have? They have chronic illnesses. Now, I'm not talking about cancer and heart disease. I'm talking about never feeling good, chronic headaches, allergies, irritable bowel syndrome, and the list goes on and on and on. And that's exactly what Dr. Smith said. You know, once you disturb the frequencies and you get a low voltage, you set yourself up for chronic disease. And let's face it, I am a medically trained doctor. I have 3 board certifications. But what is medicine doing so far for us? It's the 3rd leading cause of death. We have the drugs that don't heal. They just treat the symptoms. They do nothing to heal. And it's run by the big pharmaceutical companies. So life expectancy in the United States is dropping. We spend more than any developed country, yet we rank last in outcomes. Doesn't make sense. That's why Dr. Smith he's been in the forefront. He got me interested in this. So we need a new paradigm. We need, as Dr. Smith's book on cancer, we need to get to the splinter. We have to get to the cause. And this energy medicine is really important because of these little engines we have all through our body. And they are fed by oxygen and nutrients and our air. These mitochondria, that's the word, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I was thinking of before. They're really the powerhouses. And without them functioning properly and having good, clear cell membranes, they'll die, and we'll feel like dying, and we'll decrease our lifespan. And on the telomeres, I had someone explain to me, just as Dr. Smith talked to you about, size does matter in telomeres. And if you just think of a telomere as a shoelace, but has that little cap on the end, as long as you have that cap on there, that telomere is not going to get smaller. But if you beat it up with poor living, drugs, medications, a non-healthy lifestyle, those telomeres are going to get shorter and shorter. So, and that's where I'm coming from. I am medically trained, and I cannot tell you enough that though I believe in this and I practice it, and my family practices it, medicine excels in one area: emergency trauma. You know, if you're in a car accident, a motorcycle accident, you want to get to the hospital. Well, once you got patched up, you have to get everything harmonized again. Like you're in a symphony orchestra. You know, maybe a couple of the instruments are out of tune. Now we have to get everything back in tune, and that's where frequency, medication, energy medicine, biofield medicine really comes in handy, and is curative. I like to think of a friend of mine who has a Lamborghini, and he polishes it, waxes it, he services it. And, it went over a cliff, got stuck in some mud. Well, they had to get, a tow truck to pull it out. Well, that's modern, that's what medicine can do. It can get you back on the road. Once you get on the road, though, you clean it off, you polish it up, you get it all tuned up, and you get it firing like it should. And that's what we have to do with our bodies. We have to get everything firing and operating like a symphony orchestra. So I guess the other thing, I'm sorry, Dr. Smith, one other thing I just wanted, as you were talking, I remember about our bodies are 70% water, but our cells are 90-some% water. So we're actually a lot of water, but it's not the water you get out of the tap. It's not the water you get out of a bottle. It's structured water. And I probably Dr. Smith has told you about Gregory Pollack and the fourth phase of water. It's something I think you should know when you talk about frequencies. Because think of this, if you have 2 cups of water, one regular water and one structured water. The structured water is the gel phase of water. That was discovered by Dr. Gregory Pollack at Washington University. Now, if you put your finger in a regular water and you pull it out, nothing, right? But if you put your finger in structured water, you can leave a fingerprint that can be recovered. And I'm sure Dr. Smith is going to talk about imprinting. And that's why when we imprint, our cells in our body have structured water. That's why it takes this imprinting. It's like putting your finger in there, leaving a print of your finger. Well, your cells will now have a print of that frequency and they know how to use it. And unlike medication, you can't overdose on it. You cannot overdose on it. Your body just knows what to do with it.
Well, Dr. Ron, of interest is that structured water literally helps to energize the DNA so it can repair itself. I believe it's like 528 hertz is the big factor in structured water. And I know you had devices to make structured water, right?
Exactly. I ozonate and structure my water in my home for my personal drinking. Very fussy about water. And I think those of us in the field are particular about the water we put in our bodies. And I know Dr. Jerry does the same thing. But I mean, this all ties together. Frequencies, vibrations, disease, DIS with a hyphen, EA, dis-ease, your body gets ill at ease, it starts misfiring, the voltage drops, one other thing, it doesn't have to be just from pesticides and outside toxins. It could be from negative thoughts, hanging around people that have low energy.
Well, it's interesting. You brought up an interesting point there. The Japanese researcher, Emoto, he did research and he took the same water, put it into 2 glasses, put one glass on a picture of a smiling baby's face, the other on a picture of Hitler. When he froze the water and analyzed the crystalline structure under a microscope, the configuration was symmetrical and beautiful pattern of the water that was exposed to the baby's face. And the water that was exposed to a picture of Hitler was totally disorganized, asymmetrical, and fragmented. So the key in the equation is that even a photograph gives off frequencies, and it can imprint into water, which is literally a crystal which holds that energy. Now, talking about pictures and frequencies, when the saint, that woman, she went to India, Mother Teresa. She was reported to have, created a miracle she was visiting this poor woman that had stomach cancer, and she gave her a picture of herself. The woman took the picture of Mother Teresa and kept it over the area of the cancer. Well, the cancer disappeared. Well, you have to understand, Mother Teresa was a healer, and she had a very high aura or energy pattern, and that's captured in your photograph. And so by holding that picture over the area of disease, it actually resonated, reset the frequency vibration of the cancer cells and reverted it back to normal. So there is a scientific explanation for these things. Yes, it is a miracle, but there is physiology involved in this, quantum physics.
Absolutely. And again, your listeners and my listeners can look up Greg Pollock and learn about that fourth phase of water. To me, it was really enlightening. The book is hard to read, but it's big print. But that gel phase of water, and it, you know what? The other thing about that gel phase of water, Dr. Jerry, it has an electrical charge. That's why it's called easy water. It's got electrical charge. And everybody that I know of, or not everybody, most people are low in energy. I'm so tired. I'm feeling fatigued. They don't get good night's sleep, but they don't do anything else.
Well, their batteries are run down.
Exactly right. Exactly. And how do we charge our batteries?
You plug yourself into the socket.
Good water.
That's right.
Vegetables have frequencies. Every color is a frequency. So that's why you have to eat properly, and without GMO, because it's all frequencies. You get the genetically modified junk in your system, it's going to lower your millivolts. You're going to be more prone to sickness.
Well, you know, Dr. Ron, what's really spooked me, one day I was driving home and I passed by a big water tower in the community. And lo and behold, what's on top of the water tower? Probably about 24 cell phone antennas. So the frequencies that are being generated and reflected from that area are imprinting on that water that's being stored for the community. So you're drinking these abnormal frequencies and you wonder why people are so sick. You know, very few people connect the dots on this thing, but with my background, it kind of freaked me out, because this is one unexplored area as a source for creating disease, fatigue, and all other medical problems.
And as you have educated me, I mean, even now with the Wi-Fi, you know, if you're not turning that off at night, you're not doing yourself or your family any favors. Our bodies operate on very, very low voltage. I mean, and the Wi-Fi and the electromagnetic field created by it, our bodies haven't evolved enough to know how to handle it.
Well, the other interesting thing is the typical American diet makes people acidic. And the more acidic you are, the lower your voltage is on your cells. So it all goes hand in hand. And stress creates more acidity. You know, all these processed foods create more acidity. Worry creates acidity. And the bottom line is, when your micro voltage drops down to 40 milliamps, guess what? You get cancer. I mean, this is all documented. When it hits 25, you're dead. So
I mean, that's the equation, Dr. Jerry.
Yeah, when your body runs low.
And one other point that I've been researching is that low voltage, be it from toxins, either external or psychological, puts you in a chronic state of fright and flight, right? A chronic state of inflammation. And I don't know that there's a physician that's worth his salt that will deny that chronic inflammation is the cause of most or all of chronic diseases. But if you have inflammation, you don't want to just take a drug and treat the inflammation. You want to do what Dr. Jerry talks about, and that's get to the source of it. Where is the electrical grid? You know, everybody that knows a little bit about acupuncture, you know all the meridians. There's these lines that go up and down on the body. I think of them as a power grid. You know, there's power going all through those lines, and they get blocked up sometimes. And we can measure that, those of us that do acupuncture, and those of us that have the other types of equipment. And where those blockages are, they block, and it blocks the flow of that electricity down the road.
Well, you know, it's interesting. My Qigong master, he's a grandmaster, and recently when I was speaking with him, he said he's concentrating his efforts now more on the acupuncture points of the head, because what he's found through the years, and he's 23rd generation Qigong master, is that when you correct the imbalances of his matrix system on the head, it flips the switches in the brain and you get quicker and more miraculous results in resolving medical issues, as opposed to treating the other meridians, in the other parts of the body. So the brain is your master computer. And I've seen it clinically. When you get the right switch, the pain disappears immediately, the swelling dissipates very quickly, range of motion increases dramatically, almost instantaneously. So it is a major area that has not really been explored the way it should be.
I totally agree. And as you in your opening monologue, there's frequency. Everything has a frequency, ladies and gentlemen, as Dr. Smith said. I mean, color. There's a frequency for pain. There's a frequency for mercury. There's a frequency for every vitamin and mineral that you take. But unlike the petrochemical vitamins and minerals, when you take your vitamins and minerals supplied to you by frequencies, you can't overdose, and your body knows exactly how to handle them. Would you agree with that?
100%. In fact, I have some young children as patients, and they can't swallow the pills. Well, the vitamin, like food or homeopathic or an herb, is a matrix carrying the frequency into the body. So with my sophisticated equipment, I have a technician, and she'll imprint the frequency of the actual vitamin into water, and we give the remedy to the child. The parent just drops the imprinted liquid into their mouth, and they get results. So it's the frequency that's actually doing the healing, and not so much the matrix that's carrying the frequency into the body. It's pretty amazing technology.
Yeah, but again, you're getting to the root cause. You're getting to the body's level, and the body understands exactly what's happening.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting.
And that reminds me, too, of something that drives me crazy. People say to me, Doc Ron, I just had a physical. My doctor ordered 100 blood tests, 4 MRIs, 3 CAT scans. He's such a good doctor. And I said, well, how'd everything turn out? He said, everything's normal. So I said, let me see them. A biochemical test is just that. It's for that instant, most of the time. And the range of so-called normals are from diseased people. Only 20% on either end are probably the healthy people. So take a number. Take vitamin D3. Normal on a lab test could be from 40 to 100. If it's 41, the PA, the physician assistant, or the clerk will call the patient, you're normal. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to be normal. You want to be optimal. You want to be 60, 70, 80. But that's not the way my colleagues, my peers are trained anymore. But if you go for a bio energy evaluation, you're going to find out where these blockages are, and you're going to find the problem out a lot sooner, and you're going to be able to correct it. Okay,
well,
so
it's interesting.
A lot of biochemical tests.
Yeah, the biochemical test, like
it's
you
not
said,
the answer.
Yeah, it's a snippet of a small window of the blood passing the area of the needle where you're drawing the blood in. But if the toxin or heavy metal is trapped in an organ and it's not floating in your blood, it's not going to show up. So you're getting a false sense of security when they say, oh, everything is normal. Now, on another interesting note, you have a grandson over in Spain, and you had a very interesting experience with him. He had a roommate that was coming down with either the flu or COVID, and you literally transmitted healing frequencies to him over a Zoom conference. Is that
that's
correct?
my grandson. I thought you said, yeah, that was my grandson Antonio. He was in medical school, by the way, in Madrid, and he had a big test coming up. And he said, Grandpa, I don't feel so good. So with Dr. Jerry's help, I transmitted to him 13 healing frequencies, and the frequencies of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. I said, call me. You're 6 hours ahead in Spain. I said, call me as soon as you wake up and tell me how you feel. He said, I feel great, Grandpa. I know I'm going to do good on my test.
So that, is a confirmation that you can transmit a frequency through the internet, and the recipient on the other end is going to get a physiologic reaction to that frequency. So I mean, this is one of the reasons why I set up the frequencyshop.co, because people can now have access to the frequencies of ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or thyroid hormone or vitamin D or these other things right through their smartphone, and transmit it into a glass of water and drink it and get healed. You don't have to go crazy swimming through crocodile-infested waters or running over broken glass to get answers. You can get it right through your smartphone.
Yeah, and you know, a really interesting case that happened almost a year ago now, but there's a friend of mine says it'll blow your circuits. That happens to be Dr. Jerry, by the way. A friend came to visit me from Delaware, and I had just imprinted the frequencies of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine into a magnetic strip. Where did I show that? I said, I won't mention her name. I said, take this home with you. You'll never know when you need it. A week later, she tells me that her girlfriend's father is in the intensive care unit with a pulse oxygen level of 86% from COVID. I said, Teresa, put the magnetic strip, the Tesla card that Dr. Jerry has, put that Tesla card under a couple bottles of water. Let your girlfriend take them to her father. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, if you could see the skin on my arms now, it's standing up. Within 8 hours, his pulse ox went up to 96%. He had 2 more bottles the following day, and now the second day out of intensive care unit, the next day home. Now, I mean, there was nothing else that he received except they were going to get ready to put him on a ventilator. He wasn't getting any antiviral drugs, and thank God he didn't get remdesivir, which we now call run, death is near. That would have really knocked him out. But there's a, and I could go on. I have other cases, okay? And of course, when I have a question, I do call Dr. Jerry. But I mean, my wife has used it for a sprained ankle. She's a tennis player. My daughter had anosmia. She couldn't smell. I transmitted frequencies from my home here in Naples, Florida, to her home in Spain with results. Now, when I say that, I have to do this because I got to be a conehead on Saturday Night Live because people will think I'm crazy. But I transmitted the healing frequencies to her from Florida to Spain. So, and I'm sure Dr. Jerry has 100 more stories and testimonials from his clients.
Well, even I had an incident myself. I was in Barbados, and I had a little incident. We had some water on our kitchen floor there in the condo that I was staying, and I slipped and badly sprained my left ankle. Well, I had a bunch of Tesla cards with me with the scalar energy and 18 healing frequencies. So I put one on either side of the ankle where the sprain was in my sock, and I wore it for 48 hours. Well, in 24 hours, the pain was gone. I never had any swelling. In 48 hours, my ankle felt 100% normal. So, you know, when you experience it yourself, it really blows your circuits because it's a real deal. I mean, we had years ago, a young boy, he was like 4 years old. He had diarrhea for like 48 hours and nothing worked. And we did an analysis with a CyberScan system and then just broadcasted the healing frequencies to him. So the child didn't know what was going on. It was truly a double-blind study. In 4 hours, he was 90% better from diarrhea and vomiting. So when you see these things happening over and over and over again, in fact, what really spooked me, one of our patients came in and said, oh, my husband's in the hospital with COVID. He's like intensive care. They don't know when the heck he's going to get out. I never met the person, but I said, bring a picture of your husband into the office. So she brought a picture in. We have a Tesla coil. We scanned in the frequency of his photograph, and we transmitted the frequencies to him. Because it's like, how's it work? Well, it's like a TV. You have the right station, they transmit the right frequency, and the DNA from the picture was captured, and it only affects that person. It's like dialing your cellular phone. Only your phone rings and no one else's because of a direct connection to that number. Well, your DNA is like your telephone number.
Well, you notice I put
He got out of the hospital like in 1 week after we treated him.
That, to most people, they're going to say we're crazy, but ladies and gentlemen, I have experienced it. Dr. Jerry has, and our whole group of practicing bioenergetic men and women experience this every day. What holds us back is the $1 million a day that's spent by Big Pharma lobbying our legislators.
On another interesting note,
and there's COVID that'll be printed. It's really going to make our medical profession look like hell. Sorry to say.
So basically,
we're fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, there's a lot of modalities.
I don't want to get into the politics of this right now because Dr. Jerry's been kind enough to invite me on this program. But I do have one other remark, and that is frequencies and energy medicine work. Okay. But again, I'd like to hear Dr. Jerry's take on this. I think it has to be part of your lifestyle, though, because lifestyle can influence 92% of our genes. That's epigenetics. So positive thoughts, meditation, exercise, a good diet, eat from around the outside of the supermarket, not the processed foods that will definitely kill you, and get the free electrons from the earth. There's electrons, protons, neutrons, and I'm sorry to say, in my profession, now we have morons. But we can do away with the morons, right?
Absolutely.
Let's get those free electrons by grounding ourselves. Walking bare feet, I'm fortunate I can do it on the beach. And I'm often reminded when I do walk on the beach, as a kid in Wildwood, New Jersey, how good it felt to be buried in the sand with Mother Earth, getting those free electrons in our body, which are anti-inflammatory, by the way. Anyway, but that's a whole new subject. But I think grounding and the other issues are important to be without disease. What's your take on that, Dr. Jerry?
100%. And it's all about resonance. My Qigong master, I spent 2.5 days in his clinic up in Ontario, and I met cancer patients that he treated strictly with his 9-matrix system, and the cancers totally disappeared because with his special form of acupuncture, with no needles, by the way, just using, we have a new biophoton pen that we stimulate the acupuncture points, but by changing the resonance in the meridians, the abnormal cancer cells literally revert back to normal. Now, conventional doctors say this is quackery, this is nonsense, but I witnessed it. I spoke to these people, and it's real deal. So the key is, if you understand the mechanism, you can tweak the body very easily and restore health without creating major problems. Every time you take a drug, you look at the side effects, it's like 4 pages long and two lines saying it may help you. So anytime you put a chemical into your body, some organ, some tissue is going to be adversely affected from that chemical. When you put a frequency in, like Dr. Ron said earlier, if you put too much of it in, the body knows how to disperse it, and you're not going to kill yourself.
Right, a lot safer. And when you weigh the benefits against the risks, the benefits are way up here, the risks are way down. Okay. It's just incredible. It's been around for thousands of years. Acupuncturists in China knew about it. A lot of pioneering physicians knew about it, but they were shut up. They were put out of business. Well, we have to do something because our current system is failing us. Our current system is disease X gets drug Y, and that's it.
And it can
we have a
bankrupt
sick
you.
country. Obesity, metabolic syndrome, chronic fatigue. I mean, you go on and on and on. Migraines. Just look at the ads on television. For every disease, they have a drug.
Well,
And then
no-
try and listen to the side effects, as Dr. Jerry said.
Yeah.
You can't keep up with it.
And Dr. Ron, you know, if you go to a hospital and you spend 3 days in the hospital, it can cost you $30,000 today. It can bankrupt
Easy.
you. So when
But
you,
then you're getting a discount.
yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah, I
the,
mean, we want to try and avoid that. We want to try and be proactive and don't. I tell my listeners, don't believe anything. Don't believe anybody. Ask your doctors questions. Why do I need this test? What's it going to show? Is there an option? And I think a key word for the coming year is options. There's options to drugs and toxic chemicals. There's 15 to 16,000 toxic chemicals in our environment, and only about 5% have ever been tested. There's only like 8,000 in Europe. Why is that? Why do we allow so many in this country? Are we setting people up to be sick? You take a hot shower and all your pores are dilated, and you put this toxic body wash on it with all these chemicals you can't even pronounce. It only takes a couple of seconds to get into your body. So, I mean, I could go on. I don't want to rant, but we're not in a good place right now as a country and as far as being healthy. I don't think most people know what being healthy really is. I really believe that. They have no idea how it feels to get up in the morning like Dr. Jerry does. He calls me sometimes. I just did 10 miles on the bike. There's not 1% of people here in this retirement community that I live in that could ever do that. They don't know what it is.
well, the key is our mitochondria are so toxic. When then someone says, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, their mitochondria are polluted. That's a little Idaho-shaped type organ in the cell that produces ATP or adenosine triphosphate. It's the energy powerhouse of your cell. When that gets polluted with glyphosate, with dioxins, with cigarette smoke, with dead food, it can't produce energy. So you run out of gas, you're done. And you go to the doctor, so he'll give you a medication to stimulate you, or you run the Starbucks and juice up on caffeine. That's not solving the problem. It's like painting on rust. It may look good for a little while, but it's not getting to the root cause. And the other hidden area, and we didn't even mention it, is dental issues. The toxicities from root canal teeth in your mouth, the galvanic electrical frequency currents from dissimilar metals. If you have gold crowns in your mouth, if you have a chrome cobalt partial, and you have a mercury filling, you got a battery going on in your mouth. It's affecting the local tissue. And if you look at the anatomical relationships, each tooth gives off a nerve directly into the brain. So if you have an infection in the tooth, if you have a toxic material in the tooth, it directly impacts on your brain. The dentists, they don't connect the dots. The medical doctors don't even consider this as part of the equation for healing. But it's there's a small percentage of dentists that have become awakened, and my whole goal was like bring people like yourself on, Dr. Ron, to educate the people out there so that they have knowledge to seek to go in the right direction to get well.
Yeah, we really have to get the word out, and I do appreciate you getting me as a guest tonight.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you very much.
The word has to get out, and
anyway,
we only can do it, one show at a time, one step at a time. Somebody said you walk around the earth one step at a time.
Yeah. Well,
and we have to be open-minded to, especially in printing. I think that's so powerful that you can take frequencies from a crystal, from a card, from a gem like a jade donut, and let your body absorb the frequencies, whether it be DNA or other healing frequencies, and then drink plenty of good filtered, structured water. I think people will wake up and say, wow, I can't believe it.
I agree.
And just remember, there's a difference between genius and stupidity. You know what it is? Genius has its limits. So don't, follow people over the cliff, please. not everybody is as smart as they think. I'm not as smart as maybe you think. I'm not, but I question everything. I question everything, and you know, what can I say? I love what I do. I love being active, even though I'm older than Dr. Jerry. I love doing podcasts. I love doing research. I love talking to people like Dr. Jerry and others in the field because there's so much to learn. So this is the way we have to do it. We have to keep networking.
Well, all I can say is thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. And as I often say to our listeners, never ever trust a doctor who has dying plants in the reception room. So God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Another great session, and we'll be back next week with another hot topic. So stay well, and God bless.